bikes are on stands, and there's cables on the rollers that the back wheel's on, and that twists a wire which moves a hand on a clock that shows distance.
Okay.
So you have like sprint races.
Cool.
Like we move those tables, or we do it outside on the patio, and it's always a hoot.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to All Beer Inside. I'm your not so humble host, Carp, and today we're in Carleton Place, Ontario, and joining me is Adam from Stalwart Brewing.
Hello.
Thank you
Thanks
very
for stopping
much.
by.
Yeah, thank you very much for hosting us today. Appreciate you talking about your passion and the brewery that you're a co-owner of, and I'm looking forward to our conversation. You brought me some delicious beers here to try that are hiding behind the camera at the moment, but all your lineup is in front of us, and that's the important part. What am I going to be starting with here?
You can start with the Taxman Blonde Ale.
Okay.
So we make our beers a little more full flavored overall, but in this case, this is a light beer, 4.5%, but we're not skimping on the flavor, so there's no rice or corn lightening it up, and instead of Pilsner malt, we've used pale malt. So you'll see that it's...
Nice clean house. As I do a toast. Oh yeah, super clean.
And then in distinction to our other beers, we use a traditional German hop Perle in this one, whereas in our other ones, we're using so-called New World hops.
Super light, definitely. Like I could see myself drinking a bunch of these all season long, so... this is one of your flagship beers, clearly?
Well, it's one of our studies. It wasn't one of the earlier beers that we put out, but people were still coming and asking for a blonde. And we would say, well, we've got a peach and apricot pale ale, or we've got an American wheat beer. And they'd go, yeah, but what about a blonde?
Yeah.
And then so we still sort of did it our way, but yeah, it's a steady seller for sure.
Awesome. So what's the beer story? What's the history behind you getting into craft beer and the history of Stalwart?
Yeah, I mean, mostly by accident, but eventually on purpose. So my colleagues, Nathan and Ed and I, used to work at the Wellington Gastropub, which is a restaurant in Wellington West in Ottawa. And it was a place that was always bringing in sort of new beers as the craft beer scene had its resurgence, starting maybe 15 years ago, something around there. We were drinking all this, super fresh, interesting beer, and then that eventually led to making it together on the weekends in Nathan's garage, and then eventually that burgeoned into a little project called Stockpot Ales. This would have been in 2011, 2012 sort of time, which was us with oversized homebrew equipment in the kitchen of the Wellington that was licensed then by that point as a brew pub. So it was very small in terms of typical brew pub scale, but we made some of these same beers, so not that one, but our flagship beer, Dr. Feelgood IPA, for example, our stout, and one of our pale ales we made back then as well. And then we were doing that for about a year and sort of thought, well, maybe we could make the jump to be a full-scale brewery, and we figured if we were going to do it, we should do it sooner rather than later, because there was not a bad thing, but lots of other breweries opening up, so we didn't kind of want to just spin our tires. We just sort of decided to take the plunge. And we were looking around outside of Ottawa, like so close enough that deliveries would make sense and that you could be, still connected to that scene, but have maybe a little bit of your own spot going on. So this is an old car garage built in the late 40s. This was their spray room in the breweries where the garage used to be, but it was just sort of a perfect little layout and right in the heart of beautiful downtown Carleton Place. Yeah,
well, clearly Carleton Place is about 40 minutes from Ottawa, so like you said, delivery's pretty easy that way. So, what made you kind of decide Carleton and not even closer to Ottawa, let's say Canada or Stittsville or something like that?
Well, there was already breweries there initially, and then. Also, just from like a cost perspective, or dealing with local government, that sort of thing, small towns seem to be a little more personal and a little more willing to work together. This was a vacant spot for a while, and now it's been a brewery for 7 years. So
Stalwart's a pretty unique name. What made you guys decide to name the brewery Stalwart, and not Adams or like kind of an amalgamation of the three owners' names type of thing?
Yeah, well, we wanted something that wasn't already a brewery name in the English language. So if someone put it into the search engine, we wouldn't be confused with another. As it happens, though, a Stalwart Brewing did open up in Australia shortly after we opened, but they're far enough away. We get the occasional mistag, and we'll just write back cheers or whatever. It's like, you mean these guys or whatever. But Yeah, we had a sort of a list of names. We wanted something that sort of spoke to our beer in terms of being more full flavored, maybe a little bit stubborn, but in a good way.
Okay. Yeah.
Sort of a way of not maybe wanting to do exactly what everybody else is doing, but still doing it in a I don't know, in a kind way, not as a, just opposition for the sake of opposition.
Sure. Yeah.
And we had come up with Bastion Brewing, because that had a nice ring to it, but that was taken. That's a brewery in California. And it was just sort of word association from there.
It's, I mean, I think America's like 4,000 breweries. We're top in 2,000, I think, in Canada soon. It's
and then never mind,
finding
UK,
names alone has got to be a hell of a thing to do. So I can't imagine just, search here. Okay, well, it's available in North America, but somebody else has it. Oh, let's check here. And it's more trouble than it's worth, I think, but that's why I'm a drinker and not a brewery owner. So,
all good. You want to try your
let's try the next one. So.
Sure. So that's Down by the River.
Okay.
So it's not quite light enough to be a session IPA. It's 5.3%. But the idea was you would enjoy another IPA, or you like that fuller style, but we want to give you something that's a little lower in alcohol, sort of, like a dock beer, a lunch beer, whatever you want to call it. And so lots of wheat and oats to give it a nice body, nice medium bitterness, lots of Eldorado hops in there.
Beautiful notes again. All right, cheers.
Cheers.
Super light. Another like super crushable beer for me. So I'm surprised you said 5.3. It doesn't have that like 5.3 taste. To me, it tastes lighter.
Oh yeah.
So
there you go. Well,
that's me though. So.
Wheat makes your beer more acidic too, and has like a lighter flavor than the barley. And because we have a hand stirred mash tun, we can fold in lots of those stickier, more gummy grains at the end, like while we're still mixing the mash. So we can get a lot of texture from that.
Yeah. The Anvil logo. What made you guys pick that?
Well, our friend Ryan Michaud is a graphic designer. He did all our branding and all our labels, and it was one of the concepts he had come up after we had finalized the name. But it's a suitable logo, or I think, because there used to be actually a foundry for about 100 years just on this empty lot next to us, and so as a cast object, as something that's solid, it takes a hammering every day, and the anvil's still there,
Yeah, for sure.
It's not, it just sort of spoke to us. And then we like too the logos that aren't extremely complicated. So something that you can print in one color, something that scales really well, that sort of thing. So.
And your naming and labeling, I mean, they're kind of, the names are like I said before the show, you have a Canadian professional wrestler, and then there's Dr. Feelgood, there's Snake Oil, there's Taxman. It's quite kind of a big variety of how you name your beers. Who comes up with the concept of naming the beers and doing the label? Well, you said the graphic designer.
It's a team effort. Sometimes if we might have a starting point for him as far as what we're thinking, and then he would usually provide a couple options. But it's all a little bit serendipitous, I'd say. Like, so Dr. Feelgood example, it happened that Nathan was reading the Motley Crue's biography.
Yeah.
And so we were listening to that album, Dr. Feelgood, mashing in, and we were like, oh, Dr. Feelgood's like, the song was playing. We're like, oh, that'd be a good name for a beer. Yeah. And the beer turned out, so we just called it Dr. Feelgood. And so far, Motley Crue hasn't tried to sue us, but
I think
it's more of like like there's a Dr. Feelgood's like a type of thing you could say. So I don't know. I'd be willing to argue fair use until they really try to sue us. But
I know that in the U.S. it's parody law where you could use it. I don't know about Canada, so I don't see Motley Crue coming to Ottawa and being like, hey, why is there a beer named after us?
We're not trying to get on the Billboard charts. But, exactly.
Bulldog Bob Brown, I mean...
So it was a brown ale. Nathan's from New Brunswick.
Okay.
And we were just trying to think of someone who had a last name of Brown. Because it was a brown ale. So maybe not overly complicated, but... Well, I mean, those who like, those who pick up on it and have a little chuckle. But
roadblocks, problems creating just from location. Like, was this the first we're coming here, or was there another location you wanted?
No, this was the kind of we saw it. We looked at a couple other options, and they were a little more industrial. Whereas this was already kind of two separate rooms. We knocked a hole in the back so that it was a continuous space, and we just kind of liked the vibe. And as opposed to having a section of a large warehouse or something like this. It was already a little more kind of homey.
You mentioned the town was more than welcoming. They're like, yes, come.
Yeah. Overall, there's always little things you have to figure out or concerns people might have, but I think any town leadership's handy when there's a building that's been vacant for a while, and then it becomes something that is part of the community and
for sure,
that sort of thing.
When you first got in the LCBO, were they pretty? I know they asked for quite the volume from you guys.
So they switched the way they used to do that.
Okay.
It's been a couple of years now for sure, but it used to be that you would have to be basically a provincial level brand.
Okay.
In terms of volume, and you'd have to ship through their depot, and that's a whole rigmarole. But they opened something up for smaller producers, so it's called like direct to store.
Okay, cool.
So you contact the person you get your listing approved, you go through all of the steps, and then you can be in one store, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Or you just have to approach the store directly, and then you can ship directly to them without having to go through their depot. So that did actually open up a lot of variety for sure, and like more local flavor.
I like that. That's very important. And it's the Liquor Control Board of Ontario. They should be having Ontario breweries on their shelves. There's no question about it. So.
Yeah.
Any other kind of roadblocks? Knocking down the wall, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh crap, more expenses.
No. I mean, there's just the usual stuff when you're doing renovations and when you've got multiple trades involved and all that sort of stuff. But all in all, it's fine. It's nothing like dramatic or fun to.
It's kind of all over the place. It's like, we knocked down a wall, and then it's like, oh, there's a $10,000 expense because a beam was missing that wasn't put there back in the 50s.
We had we had to get engineered drawings and everything, but it wasn't too complicated.
Cool. Gateway beers is a question I was asked. So you have, clearly you're a smaller town. For sure, there's lots of people who drink macros here. Macro drinker comes in. What are those gateway beers that you definitely suggest to those folks?
Yeah, I think that is a bit of an assumption. I think there's lots of people that were here that were into craft beer, and there's people moving here all the time. But in terms of like a more traditional beer, the one that I put up first, Taxman for sure. And then there's Down by the River. Some people that does it for them, and then there's one in between, which is Canned Heat. So that's a low alcohol, lower bitterness pale ale. I'm happy to pour it for you, but I don't think the mic will reach. Right. But anyway, really like kind of crisp and clean, and just drier than the Taxman. So just another option there that doesn't have that back end bitterness that some people aren't such a fan of.
Very cool. What's this next beer I'm trying here?
So that's Dos Jefes Grapefruit Vanilla IPA.
Okay.
Very round and smooth. We originally made it for the 10th anniversary party of the Wellington Gastropub, the restaurant that we used to work at. And just made it on the pilot system, and people really liked it. So we thought it was a bit weird.
Yeah.
We weren't sure if it would have mass appeal, but it's one of our top movers.
Awesome. Toast. Oh, the vanilla. Yeah, that's delicious. It's so well balanced. It's not like an overpowering vanilla, like when you walk into, let's say, Bath and Body Works or whatever, and you just get that vanilla smell. It's like, it's not a blast of vanilla. It's nicely clean, balanced vanilla. A little hit for myself, a little hit of grapefruit afterwards. So very, very tasty.
Yeah, and it changes as I find the balance shifts a bit as it warms up too.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I drink craft because I enjoy quality products, and clearly you can see it in my face how I'm reacting to the beers. They're very good products that you're making. So,
thank you.
Speaking of your earlier products, what was the first beer you and your team kind of ever brewed that came out of Stalwart?
Well, we started with 3 that we had made when we were Stockpot Ales. So it's back next week, but there's a peach and apricot pale ale. Drinks kind of like a dry amber, less, maybe a little more traditional pale ale that's got more of a malt balance to it, but it's still nice and dry and crisp on account of the fruit juice. And then instead of using a British ale yeast or an Irish ale yeast, we're using just the same neutral yeast we use, but give it a bit of fruitiness on the finish with juice. Cool.
Do you guys do food as well, or no food right now?
No, we serve a fine selection of Frito-Lay products, but we let people bring food in.
Yeah,
because there's people will grab shawarma from down the street or Chinese or order this great pizza place, family run just around the corner. So that's how we do it, because it doesn't really, we're not quite big enough to do the volume that makes it make sense, and people sometimes suggest, well, just do some grilled cheese. You're like, yeah, but have you ever tried to make like 11 grilled cheeses while you're doing beer tastings while people are just waiting to get a 6-pack and go home? It's just a little added detail.
I like that concept to like bring your own food, because then I can do my own kind of food and beer pairing how I want. So,
yeah, for sure.
You mentioned pre-show you haven't done any collabs, clearly no time. But if there was time to kind of do the 1 or 2 dream collabs, doesn't have to be a brewery in Ontario, let's say anywhere in the world.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you. I don't know. Haven't honestly haven't given it any thought.
Okay.
Down the road, we'll probably do some barrel aged stuff.
Cool.
So that, I guess, is a collab of sorts, as opposed to like which barrels and what what the characteristics of that sort of thing. But still a little ways off for that.
That's awesome. When you have time and money, and it's a lot safer to travel, beer vacation that you'd love to take that you've never taken.
Oh yeah, we had big plans of going to Vermont at least, but we were like, oh yeah, we'll do it. Year 2 we'll have time, and then there's here we are in our 7th. We'll get a junket in there for sure. Vermont's
pretty awesome. It's a very small state with a lot of breweries. So literally, let's say there's you, and then the Pharmasave right down there would be another brewery.
Yeah,
it's just one after the other. It's crazy, and I feel Ottawa's starting to get that way where they're literally blocks away from each other. Here, you're a little more spread out. I think Braumeister recently opened not too far away from you guys as well.
A couple of years ago, they're just down the main street. The bridge is out at the moment, which makes it a little more challenging. But they make great traditional, like German, European style beers.
Yeah, and so as I like to ask, somebody comes here, has a few beers, buys a 6-pack, gets some merch. Besides Braumeister, who's right down the street, any other friends in the area, even restaurants who serve your beers, like who would you love to give a shout out to, type of thing?
Yeah, for sure. There's other breweries like Crooked Mile in Almont. There's Cartwright Springs if you go a little further up in Pakenham. There's Ridge Rock and Carp. There's Ashton Pub in Ashton just down the street. So lots of places. In town here, you can find your beers at Black Tartan Kitchen, at Bolton House, at Smith & Barrel.
Awesome.
And
fantastic. Beer number 4 I'm trying here.
So that's Dr. Feelgood. That'd be our most popular beer month on month, year on year. But it's a fuller flavored IPA, so it's not necessarily everyone's cup of tea, but I think it's one of those people who like this fuller flavored beer search us out. So
awesome. Toast.
Cheers. So it's got a real simple,
there it is,
pleasing malt profile. So it's just 2-row wheat and barley.
Yeah, I'm starting to get the maltiness. It's is like not an English IPA. It's what?
It would be West Coast style.
West Coast stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So it's not full of chalk like a New England. So you're still going to have a more assertive but balanced bitterness on the finish, as opposed to like a mimosa feel.
Yeah.
But
6%ish.
It's 6.8.
6.8. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It does taste a little of a boozier IPA, but that's something that I enjoy. Is start light, like you gave me kind of that start light, and then we'll get to the bigger, bolder beers on the way. So that's
exactly.
That's an important thing. Somebody comes in, it's like, well, throw 5 beers at me. It's like, okay, we'll start you light, and we'll work your way up.
Yeah, because I think it's like if you taste an IPA first and you have a pale ale after, the pale ale seems lighter than it actually is, right?
Yeah.
The Overton window of bitterness and body.
Yeah. With festivals starting to make a comeback, do you see Stalwart showing up to festival maybe in the next couple months, next year?
We're just a little small to do like traditional beer festivals. One thing that you'll have missed it by the time this comes out, but Back 40 Cheese in Mississippi Station, which is about 45 minutes to an hour from here, they do an event every year, Cooks and Curds. So it's like all sorts of cheese and other local food and drink from a variety of producers, so that's always a good spot.
And as a Montrealer, just curd cheese is typical with the puts-in, so...
And this is, they do curds. They usually don't do curds, but they do curds for this event, so it's a bit of a special treat as well, but they've got a lot of fine cheese. What
made you guys decide on the local products you have as well, the pickled eggs, the classic mustard?
Yeah, that's our friends like that. Natasha and Brian. They've got a farm and farm shop in Middleville, which is just up the road. And I met them here and thought, I've got beer, you make mustard. How about making me a beer mustard? Yeah. And then Tasha made a bunch of great stuff with our products, and people like pickled eggs, so
Yeah.
we sell those too.
Cool. You're coming up to 7 years in now. What's next for the Stalwart brand?
Pretty much just keeping on. We'll probably eventually put out a new beer that'll be different than anything else we've got going on, just because with 12 beers on the roster, sometimes you don't want to just make another beer for the sake of a beer and people go, oh, geez, this one's a lot like this one here. You know what I mean? In a way, you kind of maybe dilute the distinctiveness of the beers by having too many. But yeah, we got some ideas. And yeah, you know, always look forward to having different types of events here too. Like we hosted a fundraiser for the food bank yesterday, for example, or we do, a friend of mine has a roller racing rig. Have you ever seen that? Like the old school bicycle racing?
Okay, yeah.
So it's, bikes are on stands, and there's cables on the rollers that the back wheel's on, and that twists a wire, which moves a hand on a clock that shows distance.
Okay.
So you have like sprint races.
Cool.
Like we move those tables, or we do it outside on the patio, and it's always a hoot. So, you know, people come to us with different things to you know, either raise money or just have a party for something or another, and we're usually game.
I'm sure you guys are more than happy when things kind of reopened fully, and it's like we could have a full tap room again.
Yeah,
please, we missed you. Come back.
That was a relief for sure. Yeah. But
it's been an interesting 27, 28 months. So, one last beer here. What am I having?
So that's the Bulldog Bob Brown, oatmeal brown, nice deep mocha thing going on. Not as smoky as a stout, not as chocolatey as a porter. On the darker end of the brown ale spectrum, for sure.
It's almost tipping into porter.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Toast.
Cheers. Yeah, but if you had it against like our chocolate double porter, you would see the difference for sure.
That is nice and clean. I always expect, like, I don't know why, maybe it's because I've been deceived by bad brown beers in the past, because you're always like, you're expecting just too much smokiness or too much of this or too much of that. So it's just try and keep an open mind when you're trying something new. A new beer is, that was your past experience. Don't bring that into what you're trying now. So
Sure.
This is what, 5-ish%?
6.4.
6.4, wow. Your beers are deceptive on their alcohol content because you can't really get it, like for the ABV. So sometimes you taste a 10% beer.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's all about balance. Like our double IPA is 9%, so we give it a little bit of sweetness to match the heat from that extra body. But sometimes people wonder, you know, why do you make your beer so strong, or why are some of your beers so strong? And it's not just for the kick; it's really for the balance. Like if you have bolder flavor, you need to support it with more body, and you know the usual way to do that is your alcohol level that is commensurate to everything else that's going on in the beer.
So yeah, I came in and I saw the artwork. Clearly, very music-heavy artwork. Who are the artists? Are they for sale? Like,
they are for sale. Her name's Lyneth Morgan. She's based out of Ottawa, and actually, she's going to be having a big sale soon. When this comes out, because she's we've been hanging her stuff for a while, and she always rotates it through. But she's doing like a big sale, and actually, someone else is coming in, but also kind of funky and colorful and
cool.
Matches our vibe, you know.
And what made you guys decide to bring in the local artists to hang their wares on the wall?
The white walls were pretty boring, and some friends from here are friends of hers and suggested her, and so she's been up pretty steadily over the years.
You guys see yourselves doing like kind of a rotation of artists here?
Yeah, like it was mostly just because we did rotate other people in, but we liked her stuff and she was happy to hang here, so that's good. But we'll the core of the guys that's coming in next also got some funky stuff. But yeah, it'll be a matter of then I'll try to hopefully find someone else to have in the wings when he wants to rotate through. But yeah, I think people like the change, you know, instead of having the same pieces of art all the time. Why not?
I noticed the pool table in the back. Do you ever do like a pool tournament or anything like that?
We have from time to time. Probably try to get it going again. Yeah. But there's always sort of there's always informal ones. People show up and play doubles or whatever. Yeah. 9 ball's pretty popular here too because we don't charge for pool. So if you're not playing by the game, having like shorter games. Yeah, for sure. Possible. So we get to introduce people to 9 ball, which is always fun.
Fantastic. So I got no other questions. Thank you very much for hosting us today. Really appreciate it. For who's ever in the area or whoever's looking, let people know, 1, where they can physically find you, and then 2, online.
Yeah, for sure. So we're located at 10 High Street in beautiful downtown Carleton Place. Our website's stalwartbrewing.ca, and Stalwart Brewing is our handles for all social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Awesome. So we're going to include all that in the show notes. As for us, is allbeerinside.com is the website. Add All Beer Inside on all social media. And as I say at the end of all episode, drink craft, not crap.